As a massive fan of creepy Disney things, I have spent countless hours learning obscure facts about the park's history. Once I start, I can't seem to stop digging into the urban legends surrounding certain events and attractions. This fanatical addiction is what brought me on the path toward learning the untold origins of the Haunted Mansion boat ride. It was going to be called Captain Culpepper's Crypt, and was a ride based on an infamous gravestone within the attraction's queue line. The tombstone reads that the captain had braved the sea only to die in his very own bathtub. The thing that many people don't know about this character from the queue line is that he was actually based on a real person. A homeless man at that, who would oddly dress in a sailor raincoat and would loiter around Disney Studios begging for food. Walt apparently helped him get back onto his feet a few times, only to see him continually fall back into alcoholism and despair. Many of the employees there, including Walt, gave up faith on the man and eventually started ignoring him, even going as far as stepping over him and avoiding eye contact when they would walk by. That was until one day when Walt was walking around the studio and noticed that the man was lying face down in a puddle outside. Authorities were contacted and they declared that the man had starved to death over the past month or so, living outside the studio. Ever since then, Walt and many of his other employees would speak about him in passing, always referring to him as Captain Culpepper, due to him looking a little like the villain from the 1963 film Mad, 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 Mad World. They essentially all said they felt very bad for ignoring the man, but also claimed that some people just couldn't be helped. That was why Walt later decided to dedicate a character in the original Haunted Mansion to the old sailor. He asserted that even though the man was not able to create anything very memorable in his own life, he at least could inspire a great character within his. Years later, when Walt conceived the second Haunted Mansion for Disney World, this captain figure was amplified and Imagineers decided to create a mock-up of an actual water-based ride of its own, to be positioned behind the Haunted Mansion in the woods. Most people do not know, but they actually began construction on this ride. However, from the early days of it being built, the project was riddled with issues. Fires would start for seemingly no reason, and birds would just kill themselves in the construction area. Then even a worker was killed due to a freak accident when he tried leaning on one of the makeshift cliff sides, and the entire facade came tumbling down onto him. It was at that point that Walt's brother Roy decided to put a stop to the construction of the ride. He was always more of a pragmatic man than Walt, but the kind of issues they were having at this building were unlike anything that he had ever experienced, and he was even beginning to be a little superstitious. See, it was well known in their circle that Captain Culpepper was based on a man who died outside the studios, so things were definitely seeming pretty spooky. The only issue, though, was that due to the problematic building location, up on a hill and close in proximity to Haunted Mansion, they were not able to easily remove components that had been already built there. It's rumored that there was a small body of water already created, along with a number of buildings and a creepy large sailor statue out in the woods, built out of bamboo and reeds. In the ride's script, the statue was apparently built for the captain by a mysterious tribal people. Learning about this ride as a Disney geek / urban explorer was probably not a great idea. My buddy Jason and I also write a blog about exploring Disney parks, so this was definitely something we were going to check out. However, it would take some planning. Sneaking into backstage areas in the park is not as easy as it might seem. We would need to research employee rotations, break patterns, etc. Not to mention get back there when there weren't any other guests around. So one night, a few months ago, we finally did it. We hopped up onto the wall in the queue and ran back into some woods around the side of the building. Soon we found ourselves around the side of the house and walking into a forest. I became increasingly nervous as we stepped over a few barricades, cautioning us to stay out. There was no turning back at this point, though. If we were going to get banned from Disney for this, at least we had to find what we were looking for. We searched around the woods for a while, pretty much finding nothing. The area back there didn't even seem large enough to house such an attraction, so we started second-guessing the rumors altogether. At that moment, I walked around the side of the hill we were on and saw an artificial-looking cave in the side of it. I could have sworn I had already looked there, but I guess I missed it somehow. There was an arrow-shaped sign beside it, labeled "Abandon Hope, all ye who enter here," in a spooky Disney font. I thought that was a nice touch. Behind it, believe it or not, was the horrific bamboo sculpture we had heard so much about, standing over the cave confidently. Jason snapped a photo and stepped inside the cave as we gazed at it in fear. The cave actually led to a queue line. They still had light background music playing, which was mixed with these spooky sounds of wind and the ocean. I had heard about when explorers trespassed through the abandoned river country, there was still music playing in the background. So I guess I thought maybe there was some reason they had left this one on too. That was until I noticed what was next though. Something I will never forget until this day. The boat ride was actually running. The ride vehicles were these little wooden rowboats, and they were just cycling like a normal ride, as if employees were there running it. However, there wasn't a single cast member anywhere in sight though. I guess at that point our curiosity got the best of us, because we did something unimaginably stupid. We got onto the ride. There's things you can take back in this world, and I only wish this mistake was one of them. You could tell it was older-fashioned technology than the other rides in the park. It almost seemed like it was incomplete, too. It was closer to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride level technology than anything else, having mannequins and wooden cutouts that moved in front of the ride vehicle as we passed. In the first room there were these figures of a mother and father hunched over in the corner of a room, while a boy in a raincoat watched from the dinner table. Demonic sounds of the parents devouring something echoed throughout the room. Jason and I, bewildered, eyed each other, already ready to get off the ride. However, I wasn't getting in that water. Who knew what kind of machinery or chemicals were floating around inside there? Then the next room was somehow even worse than the first. The boy with the raincoat was in it again, only he was a teenager this time, and he was staring out over the side of a boat, towards the figure of a blonde teenage girl reaching her arms up, drowning in the water. The sound effect in this room was just gargling, and then someone's muffled attempts to speak. Horrified, I gazed up at the boy as we exited the room, and his head looked like it was in a different position, staring right at me. Then we entered a room with a green light shining from below the water. There was a massive statue of Walt Disney, saying dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. He was standing above the boy with the raincoat, who was now a man, and something about the massive size of Walt almost made it feel like a religious experience. The last room was the one that really got us, though. The figures in this one were two teens dressed strangely like us, laying out in the woods. Then a cutout of the man with the raincoat popped out in front of the boat. The sound effect this time was just weeping. At this point, Jason was just done with it, and he said he was going to get out of the boat. I urged him not to as we entered another room, this one with several tombstone busts, one being the man with the raincoat, and two others being us. Jason saw this and immediately jumped out of the boat. He started wading through the water as I screamed for him to come back up, but he didn't listen. He just swam back into the darkness. Then I heard footsteps trudging through the water. I yelled his name out a few more times, but he was gone. I sat there in the darkness, not knowing what to do, just begging for the boat to get back to the loading area. Something then slammed against the back of the boat, thrusting me forward. I forced my eyes closed, just wishing for it to go away. Then it slammed back up against me again, harder this time. Then a third time, only this one was so hard that I slammed up against the lap bar and opened my eyes. Much to my surprise and joy, I was back in the loading area for the ride. I hopped out of the boat and ran through the queue line so fast I could have won a marathon. And on my way out, I turned back to look at the cave's entrance one last time. It wasn't there though. It was just a hill again. Till this day, I still don't know if it was ever really there or if I had somehow just lost it. I mean, I've told Disney security, police, and honestly any other authority who would listen about Jason's disappearance. Only thing is that they all deny that the attraction ever existed in any capacity at all. I know what I saw, though. I know something was back there in those woods. So I guess in the end, the scariest ride in Disney World is really only a cover for the true horror that sits behind it.